Hi everyone, Sarah Pacaro, rapid transformational therapist and hypnotherapist. I'm going to talk to you today about why healthy relationships seem so boring, so dull, so unexciting after you have been in a relationship with a narcissist or a toxic and unhealthy person, someone who was constantly gaslighting you, manipulating you, belittling you, hooking you back in. Maybe the relationship was on and off, and thank God you are finally out of that relationship and you've done some inner work to healing, right? You understand about the red flags and you're no longer dismissing them or avoiding them. You're seeing them and you've seen those warning signs. Maybe you're getting back out there into the dating world and you're excited because one of the biggest reasons why people stay in toxic and unhealthy relationships for so long when they are being manipulated and abused emotionally, spiritually, financially, whatever the type of abuse is because of the fear of being alone. You don't want to be alone. And that person had promised that they would change, promised that they would get better, promised that they would go counseling and get help and work on it, right? They painted this future that's called future faking. And you see all that now. You know about the love bombing, you know about the gaslighting, you know about the manipulation, the future faking, and like you feel like you're walking around with a PhD in narcissism or toxic traits, whatever it is. You're very aware, almost hyper aware, and maybe you're a little hesitant to get into the dating realm and world again because you think, I don't know, everyone's like that. I start to feel and see like everyone's a narcissist, right? And someone does one thing and you're like, oh, narcissist. Okay, it's not your job or my job to go around diagnosing narcissists, but it is your job to protect yourself, to be aware. And you may feel like, yeah, I'm pretty aware now and I'm ready to date. So hopping online, swiping, 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 really not the best way to meet people because that is the breeding ground, if you will, for narcissists and where they hang out. It's a very, very quick and easy source of supply. But you've got your guard on, you're educated, and you know the warning signs. So you're fine and you're comfortable with swiping, or maybe you meet someone, like your friends and family know you're ready, or maybe you meet someone in a community setting, sometimes hard with COVID. But anyway, you're ready to date and you begin to date. And you're sitting there after a while like, oh, this person's boring. And then your mind starts to wonder and you start to compare and maybe even miss. You don't miss the ex because you know that you would never go back to that. But your mind starts to go, this is boring. This person is like, like they're just not exciting. They're not what you thought. They're calm. They're able to have a conversation that involves talking about you and not always about them, and they're able to really connect with you, and they're kind. They're taking things slow, right? And you have your list of things that you want in a relationship, and you're going down and you're like, they check all the boxes. They're really tall, they've got a nice smile, they're a good parent, whatever it is that's on your list, they're checking those boxes, and you like this. And you know that logically. There's like a logical part of your side brain that says, they have all the things that I want. They're checking the boxes. Why am I so bored? Well, why healthy relationships seem so boring, especially after you've been in a toxic and unhealthy relationship, you've gotten out of it, you've done the work, you've read the books. Why they seem so boring are these 9 things that we're going to talk about. The first one is because your parents and caretakers were inconsistent in meeting your needs. And I'm not talking about, oh, my parents were not an alcoholic. They were, no, they met your needs. They put a roof over your head. They had a 9 to 5 job, whatever it is. They took care of you, right? But I'm talking about consistently. They didn't consistently meet your emotional needs. And there's another video that I have about this that is called childhood emotional neglect. Your parents and caretakers were inconsistent in meeting your emotional needs. Another reason why relationships can seem so boring, especially after you've gotten out of a toxic and unhealthy one that feels like you're riding a roller coaster, is because your early environment felt unsafe. Stay with me. When your early environment feels unsafe, you turn to fantasy as a coping mechanism. And you'll notice, looking back on that toxic and unhealthy relationship, yeah, I was always fantasizing. I was always daydreaming of how things could be better or different. And this leads you to idealizing relationships as an escape from reality. Wow. Sit on that for a moment. If you had to turn to fantasy to a coping mechanism, what that led you to do is idealize relationships as a way to escape from reality. Reality was not something that you felt comfortable in, not something you wanted to stay in. Your reality was not a good place to be. So you turned to relationships as a way to escape. Relationships are a wonderful place to escape. They're full of distractions, full of like connections, all these feel good hormones that flood your body, and you're like, oh, it just feels so good, right? That honeymoon phase, or in a toxic and unhealthy relationship, the love bombing phase. We're going to go back to your parents and caretakers being inconsistent in meeting your needs. You might say, I had really, really good parents, but if they were inconsistent at meeting your emotional needs, if something as simple as like they didn't have time for you, I don't have time for that. Stop crying. Let's go. We need to go. That led to this hot and cold behaviors that now feel familiar in relationships. Your mind is programmed and hardwired to always go towards what's familiar and avoid what's unfamiliar. So if your parents and caretakers were inconsistent in meeting your needs, you have this dynamic of hot and cold, and these behaviors now feel familiar. What's the number one thing that people avoid? Oh, fear, right? Fear of the unknown. Well, the unknown is lukewarm, right? That perfect temperature for like a bath, right? The little Goldilocks, the little baby bear, it was just right. But this is like Papa and Mama porridge. This is hot, too cold. That's what feels familiar. That little like balance beam, the little like pendulum. And you'll notice you go from like a really crazy relationship to like, I want someone different. And now they're totally opposite, but you're bored out of your mind in the relationship. And that leads to you associating consistency with incompatibility. You think, we're just not compatible. We're just not. Because your mind has now associated consistency, someone who's steady, stable, like pays their bills on time, like a healthy person, someone with healthy traits. Your mind has associated that consistency with incompatibility. Making that connection there? Okay. The other reason why healthy relationships seem so like boring, like gouge your eyes out, is because you learned to perform in order to win. You had to perform, you had to put on the show so that you could win love. It was something that had to be won. And this led to you associating love with self sacrifice. Guys, what that is a fawning trauma response. It led to you associating love with self sacrifice. I have to sacrifice myself. I have to do everything for you so that you will love me and praise me and give me those words of affirmation. So you'll give me that physical touch and that quality of time, whatever love language is. That's what it led to when you had to learn to perform to win love. Otherwise, if you weren't performing, you were forgotten and you didn't get those emotional needs met. That led to you struggling to be yourself. Just be yourself, right? How do I do that? They won't like me. They'll think I'm boring if I just be myself. So that leads to you struggling to be yourself with your partners or with any partner or person that you don't need to perform for constantly. Oh my gosh, how can all that seem so boring? Well, I hope that that explanation helps you make sense of why healthy relationships can seem so boring, because it doesn't have the hot and cold that the other one did, that the unhealthy relationship had. And because of all this, because our mind is hardwired to find what's familiar and avoid what's unfamiliar, to break that cycle, it takes reprogramming the guy upstairs. The guy upstairs is your mind, your brain, your subconscious mind. You have these beliefs in there, these past programs from your upbringing. It's kind of like if you're walking around with like the first iPhone. No one uses the first iPhone anymore. They have the latest and greatest one. You can reprogram your mind, upgrade your mind, your inner thoughts and beliefs, just like you can update and reprogram a phone so that it works better, more efficiently, so that you can accept the thing that you want most, which is a healthy, loving relationship. That takes getting out all the bugs in your brain, if that makes sense. And the way that I work with clients to do that is through hypnosis, is through rapid transformational therapy. It's a fast, quick, effective, rapid way to Uninstall those old programs from the hot and cold relationship and upbringing and all those unwanted desires and things that you do, and you go, oh, why did I do that? I don't want that anymore. How do I stop doing that? If that's where you're at, then let's connect, because you desire a healthy relationship and it's what you want most, but you're probably thinking it's so boring. And you don't want to be bored in a healthy relationship. You want to be just as excited in a healthy relationship as you were in that toxic and unhealthy one. So I would love to connect with you, talk to you about how I work with clients one-on-one, some of the resources and things that we do to update and reprogram your mind. So that's where you're at, what you're ready for. Just click on the banner. You can schedule a time to talk. It'll pull up my calendar so that you can enjoy being in a healthy relationship, because it's so worth it.